Welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. We've got a fun one for you this week as we get ready for a very special guest, Peter Kaestner, the first person to see 10,000 bird species in the wild. We speak to him next week. To prep for that epic conversation, we're taking a closer look at a bird that earned him that milestone, the Orange-tufted Spiderhunter. Spoiler alert, Amanda was not impressed by this bird at first, and John and Shannon do their best to change her mind. Along the way, we get into species counts, what they mean, and how birders keep track. It's a fun, curious, and very interesting conversation. As always, you've got married ornithologists and field museum curators John Bates and Shannon Hackett, plus me, RJ, and my fiancée Amanda. Okay, go grab your binoculars and let's get into it. All right, we're recording.
Okay, Amanda.
All right.
You're not impressed by this bird, the orange-tufted spiderhunter?
No, I want you guys to knock my socks off. John, what were you saying?
The name is longer than the bird itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not true. No, I think there are a lot of, with 11,000 species of birds, there's all kinds of variation in what seems to be exciting about any individual species, such that there are going to be ones that really kind of seem like they fall off the map. And I experience that. If you show people flycatchers in South America, there are 350 species, and a lot of them are small and green, just variants of one another. And yet at the same time, I think one of the things I've loved about doing ornithology through the years is that once you start to get to know them, everyone's different. And I think this particular bird is a great choice because most people do not think of the Philippines as a destination for say tourism or just in general, and yet like the avifauna of the Philippines is absolutely amazing, and these guys are a neat part of it. They're relatives of sunbirds, which are kind of brightly colored, so they're not as good looking as their cousins, I guess, or as brightly colored. But they live in the forests of the Philippines and Southeast Asia, and again, not much is known about them in some ways.
Okay. Just think. So this is we kind of jumped in partway through. So we're talking about the orange-tufted spiderhunter. And its genus is Arachnothera, and its species name is Flammifera. And you don't think that's exciting? Its name is super cool.
What does it mean, Shannon?
It means orange-tufted.
Oh, okay.
No, John.
I think I kind of agreed with Amanda on not being super excited, but that's just because I feel like there's not a lot of information about it, right?
That's true, actually.
And it was like we were trying to research, and I was like, wow, I can't find anything about this bird. And most birds, it's like there's so much out there. And then I kind of had this thought, like, of course, the 10,000th bird that Peter Kaestner's seen is this one that nobody really knows that much about.
Well,
it's
and
like
if he'd seen it 20 years ago, he wouldn't get it because... It's a relatively recently split bird. So it was part of a much bigger complex of the species of sunbird, whose last name is Longirostris. But so this, Arachnothera,
which is what they have. That means long nosed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Arachnothera means spider hunter, and Flammifera, which I just love that. Is flame bearer, the flame carrier.
Oh.
And if you
that's
if
cool.
you ever see what this bird does, which of course I've never seen in real life, it looks so boring from the outside, especially when you compare it to other sunbirds with all their iridescent plumages and weird feathers. This bird doesn't have that, except when it's displaying, it flashes these tufts of orange, bright orange, out of the corner of the shoal. It comes out of the pectoral part of the of the wing,
Okay.
and it just flashes them up, and it looks fake. The pictures of them displaying, which admittedly are not that many. The orange looks fake. So it's cooler than you think, Amanda.
No, you're right. Yeah, and you're right. There's not a lot of pictures. Only saw like a few with the tufts displayed, and I didn't see any video. I'd like to see some video.
I mean, the Philippines is a big country with a lot of islands, and these things are. This bird is from the southern islands of Mindanao, being the largest, but a bunch of the smaller islands, and so they're not that easy to get to. I mean, one of the interesting things to me is one of the reasons why we know about them is the Field Museum has a collection that was made by an incredible, some people, they call him the father of Philippine conservation, a guy named D.S. Rabor, who back in the 60s with his family decided he wanted to know about the birds of the Philippines and went around and made really wonderful collections of from a lot of these islands. And those have been the basis for the kinds of things that Shannon was describing with respect to somebody coming back and suggesting that based on the morphological variation, because you can compare birds from Mindanao with birds from Luzon and the other islands across the Philippines, you can begin to see how significant the geographic variation is. And that's what led them to fully recognize Flamifera as a species in and of itself. And
there's tremendous
Peter
amounts.
Kaestner had to go see it.
Yeah, there's tremendous amounts of genetic differentiation in this group of birds too. So they're old, really old. That makes them really interesting as well. They have a really complicated and interesting tree of life history. So their phylogenetic history is kind of fascinating about how do you know something's a natural group where all of the species are each other's closest relatives versus not. And so there was some confusion that happened with respect to knowing whether or not the purple, these common names, purple-naped sunbird. I'm not good with common names. Whether it split, the genus is split into kind of two pieces with some species on each piece. And the question was whether the purple-naped one came within the middle of those two or whether it was outside of those two. And it was not clear from the first genetic studies, and it became more clear in a more genomic study. But then they have super cool tongues. So I went back and looked at Frank Gill, who is an ornithologist at the Philadelphia Academy of Science, where Jason is right now. So he's, Jason is kind of followed in his footsteps. He published a paper in 1971 on the purple-naped tongue. So you are going to get nectar out of flowers. There's lots of ways you can do it. We talked about diglossa, right, once, where you can split the corolla open and suck out the nectar, or you can do some of the things that hummingbirds and sunbirds, which are both specialized on nectar. They have to get their tongue down, their beak down into the flower to get the nectar. And so, what does that look like? It can look like a lot of things. It can look like a straw. It can look like a double tube, which is what a lot of sunbirds have. Is their tongue is flat, but then it curls up at the edges and kind of makes. So it's not a completely enclosed tube. It's like it's curled up like that, and this genus has a distinct tongue from all other nectar feeders. Wow. So, yeah. And there is really amazing pictures, not of this species, but of a different species, of it using its tongue. So the tongue for a lot of these birds is longer than the mouth, longer than the beak.
Oh, wow.
Because you got to stick it in, and if you're going to use it like a straw, suck it up. But there's this amazing pictures of a sunbird using its tongue to capture insects. So
Whoa.
it's in this. There's all these midges, little tiny gnats around the bird, and it's sticking its tongue out, and on the end it has kind of like a frilly end, and it's
Oh, wow.
grabbing insects out of the air with that frilly ended tongue.
Like a frog almost.
And just like a frog. Yeah.
There you go. That's
And
cool.
there's really
that's
good
cool.
pictures by the Bird Ecology Study Group. A guy named Amar Singh has these images of spectacular spider hunter kind of flicking its tongue out of its beak to get insects. So,
Very cool.
These are things where all this new technology with photography opens up, for these poorly known birds, people going and getting video and photos of them and learning new things. I was going to point out, Shannon was saying this group, Arachnothera, the genus that these birds are in, they're placed with the sunbirds, but they're pretty divergent from the other sunbirds. And one of the things I was interested in, coming back to my fascination with nest morphology, is sunbirds tend to build these nests that are kind of semi-globular, where there's a hole that they put in at the top that they can get into. But the spider hunters are cup nesters. And it's interesting to think, like, why did that difference evolve? And is it related? And I could imagine it could be to the fact that they aren't very brightly colored. And so maybe they don't need to get inside a nest so that they're not as noticeable. They can actually just sit on a cup nest and incubate. But I just never thought about that before till I was reading that difference is actually there.
So we have some friends who have done a lot of the work, the genetic work on this. Guy named Rob Moyle he's a curator of birds and a professor at the University of Kansas, did some early genetic work, and then Luke Campillo, who worked with John, did the more genomics work that showed that Arachnothera is a natural group, and that the purple-naped one is right outside of that, which makes these nest characteristics and tongue characteristics mark what's called a monophyletic group. So they all got it from a common ancestor. They didn't get these traits by evolving them independently. So, yeah. So, and where
So
is
how are we doing? Are we making you want to go to Mindanao?
I'm sold.
Yes.
So there used to be 13 subspecies of Longerostris, and it's pretty messy with no really good boundaries for most of them. The genetic work clarified a lot of that, and then created this new taxon that is the 10,000th bird that Peter Kaestner saw.
And Shannon, you were saying that wasn't very long ago?
No.
Wow.
No.
So the name Flaminifera, right?
No, Flammifera.
Flaminifera.
What a great name.
So I was looking. So that dates back to about 1878. So it's had a name for a long time, but it was considered, because again, plumage-wise, they're not radically different from some of the other members of this Longerostris complex that they were in, and so so this happens in the tropics on a fairly regular basis with the ability to look at things with genetics and think about geography a little more. And so there have been a lot of things that have been elevated to species status just because they turn out to be, from a genetic standpoint, to been around for 3 to 4 million years in ways that are completely distinct from other populations. And I love that about diversity studies, is realizing that there are these parts of the world where you've got these forests that have been there for a long time. They're on different islands. They've been connected by change in the Philippines. One of the things that's one of our colleagues at the Field Museum, Larry Haney, has worked on for his entire career with respect to mammals, is that there have been these fluctuations in sea level that have united groups of islands into 4 different clusters across the Philippines. And then as sea level changed, there was isolation, and birds and mammals and other groups got isolated on these different islands over time. So it's a really neat evolutionary part of the world too.
But it turns out these genetic differences are way earlier than the most recent sea level fluctuations. So I every time I look at a map or hear Larry talk, it's just such a laboratory for trying to understand the relationship between pieces of land, how things can be unconnected now, but under the surface they're connected. So if you every meter you lower sea level brings the islands actually closer together from a bird perspective or from actually any movement perspective, right? So what seems like a major barrier, if you put the sea level down 30 meters, isn't anymore, and the birds can cross and did. And so then when the sea level raises, it isolates the populations. They become genetically different, which is why islands are so important to study from the perspective of speciation, why they've played a major role in understanding differentiation and speciation.
And
It's like Titanic, right? What you don't see, what's all the stuff that's under the iceberg.
Oh, right.
Till it sinks your ship.
Yeah,
Well, someone needs to get a camera and go and
they
film
do.
all of this
I was
super
going
cool
to tell
stuff.
you that you could do that. That could be you.
Yeah.
There we go. Well,
There you go, RJ. You have a mission.
All right.
I hope it's not Mission Impossible.
I know.
I love the fact that things like that are happening these days. That people are just finding out about various questions across birds and going around and getting into very local areas in different parts of the world and getting information and photographs or whatever of these, and learning more about them. And Mindanao is a big island, but it's a lot of the places have been very difficult to go for long periods of time because of various aspects of the political situation across the Philippines. So, when Peter comes on, we can talk to him about some of that, because that's one of the things about getting to 10,000 birds is you've got to go to an awful lot of far-flung corners of the world in order to do that.
Including those that are fairly dodgy to go to. You're not getting 10,000 species of birds without going to some places that your non-bird watching friends would go, huh? You're going where?
Oh,
You're kidding me.
yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to Peter. I think that's going to be so fascinating to learn about everywhere that he's been.
I think it was so nice of him to write back and to...
Yeah.
I mean, John, you must feel a lot of kind of resonance with him because of your dad.
Well, I think I'm pretty sure we overlapped when this is decades ago, and he came through the minimum critical size of ecosystems project in Manaus when I was there for a few days.
Oh, okay. Cool.
What was your dad's life list at when he passed away?
I think he got to, I want to say he got to, I can never remember, was it? I mean, it's interesting that it's gone from, it's people getting to 8,000 to people getting to 9,000. I think my dad had 8,000 or so.
I thought it was I thought it was 9,000, but maybe
Could be
not.
it was 9,000.
Your brother will
mind is-
remember.
Incredible.
Definitely. But yeah, and what I like is I remember stumbling on a web page at one point, just searching the web for something random, and it was a Swedish birder who was a contemporary of my dad's, and he had a map of all the countries that he'd been to as a result of bird watching. And
Wow.
it was probably something like 70 plus countries.
Oh my gosh. How cool.
It is. It's definitely, the world's a big place and there are a lot of different corners, and the idea of all the little trips you get to take as a result of that to various corners of the world is really something.
That's awesome.
I'd be fascinated to know, like, how, like, I mean, John, your dad, for instance, like, how you even keep track of all that before, like, eBird and everything. Like, I mean, I feel like now with eBird, it's like your life list, like everybody, like Amanda and I have a life list, and we're, hobbyists at best. And it's like, it's so easy today, I feel like, to keep a list. And back then it must have been, quite the process, I would imagine.
So the funny thing is, I can remember as a kid, Ernest P. Edwards put out one of the first sort of compact lists of birds of the world. And I remember my dad, I don't know how he knew him, but he got a copy of his manuscript. And I used to go into the science library at the University of Arizona and with that manuscript just to check spellings of scientific names in various works back then. And I think it probably, I'm sure my dad thought maybe he'll actually get into ornithology as a result of this, which absolutely happened. And
see, that's why libraries, that's why books are so, like, physical books, not just Google, which I'm happy to Google things, right? But you learn things when you look through books. This is why I never would let our son Google how to spell something. I always made him look it up in the dictionary, because that's how I learned all kinds of words, was trying to look them.
You're so right.
Look them up, and then you see all the words that are around it, and then you think of other things you want to know how to spell, and then you find out what they mean, and language becomes so much richer the more you look at it.
It's a lot faster with AI.
But AI lied. What did I look up today? Something about it was about the tongues, actually, because I wanted to see a picture, and for a while dual factor authentication was not letting me get into the library at the University of Chicago, and I was getting angry. So I wanted AI then to see if it could show me a picture, but it was incorrect about what spiderhunter tongues look like. So people should do the proper research, and do not expect that you are not going to be led astray by Gemini, which is now probably the thing people see most. But you have to go to the original source. You want to know what's true? You go to the people who actually published the piece of information. You want to know if a quote is true? Don't rely on some doofus on social media who quoted Winston Churchill or whatever it is. Go actually look at the history, people who wrote the history books, and find the right quote. Don't beclown yourself.
Yes.
But, I just want to point out, too, though, that one of the things that's happened over Peter Kaestner's birding career is that the number of species of birds has actually gone from about 9,000 up to 11,000.
Oh my gosh.
And so in addition, RJ, to keeping track of what you've seen, you're also going to run into the situation where you've seen something that wasn't a species when you saw it. And you have to go back and actually remember whether or not you actually saw it in such and such a place.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, can you, like, retroactively have seen something on your list?
We can ask Peter on that.
Yeah.
Actually, our
really
one of our
interesting.
good friends from graduate school and the University of Chicago, so from Louisiana and Chicago, is a guy named Tom Schulenberg, who's worked at Cornell now for many years and just retired. And I always loved the fact that he did a lot of field work in Peru and is one of the world's experts on South American birds. And he had a list of birds he had seen before they were described.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, how do you...
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
That's amazing. Yeah.
You could,
You were there when somebody realized that this thing was
A new.
new.
Wow.
I mean, just think of what we don't know. That's why
Yeah.
that's why it's so great to have careers like what John and I get to do, because we get to go know things.
Hmm.
And so I can know things. I have training to know what a good source is in ornithology, so I can go figure out that Gemini led me astray about the tongue of a spider hunter. But the reality, and that's fun, and I do that all the time. But the reality is that John and I do things that nobody knew, right? That we were part of scientific studies where we're the first people to know these things. And that's powerful.
That's so amazing.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And that's why we like to spend time around young people, because they have so many scientific studies and they're always teaching us new things, whether that's analytically or just basic biological questions. That, we have tools we can answer all kinds of questions now that we couldn't have answered even 5 years ago. There are people all around us who are doing that every day. It's fun.
That's awesome.
Fund the National Science Foundation people. Contact your elected representatives and tell them what's happening to science is just unacceptable to you.
Did you saw that I cut that episode into 2, and so we have like a standalone episode all about that? Are you guys okay with the way we did that? I figured it would be nice to just have a standalone. So I guess for our listeners, if you want to hear more about kind of, the way that things have been impacted, we have a standalone episode on the cuts to the NSF and how that's impacted science and everything too. You can go and listen.
Did that because a lot of people have asked me. They keep asking me how you feel, and it's a long conversation to have with people. So I'm glad. I put it on my Facebook page, and I already know a whole bunch of people from the tiny town I grew up in have already listened to it and commented. So, so we can share that, and people can kind of think about it. Think about what the cuts to science might mean for you, might mean for the world, our knowledge about the world. Humans are supposed to progress forward with knowledge, not try to revert back to where women should be barefoot and pregnant.
Well, and again,
Believe me,
from my
that's where we're going, Amanda. It's not even
I know. No, I hear you.
But I it's mind-boggling to me to think that we could do that at a time when we can sequence genomes and we can make digital recordings and we can take high-speed video of all these things and learn so much in ways that we could never have done before about the biodiversity around us. And so that's the thing. It's like, why would we want to, kneecap something like that at this point in time, given everything that's out there for the next generation of researchers to potentially study? I want somebody to go out and find orange-tufted spiderhunters and get lots of great information about them. And, if that person is a Filipino, that's terrific.
Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, everybody tune in the next episode when we talk to Peter. Is going to be really excited. I'm glad we talked about the orange-tufted spiderhunter.
Number 10,000.
Amanda and I at least can
you're not
speak somewhat to it. We're not going to tell Peter.
You saw a boring bird for your 10,000. Amanda thinks it's nothing.
Couldn't you have picked a more exciting one?
Yeah, come on, man.
Oh gosh, we gotta be cool around Peter, Amanda.
You're right.
That is such a birding thing when you've got some of these numbers. Like I wonder if he knows what his 9,000th bird was. He probably does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely true that some birds are not as impressive as others.
Thank
Beauty
you.
is in the
that
eye
was
of the
my only
beholder.
point. Yeah.
If you cared about bird tongues, you would find that bird
Fair enough.
very beautiful.
Well, no, if I cared about straw-shaped bird tongues, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we do have a mailbag question to close it out. So this is from, or did we have anything else on the Orange-tufted Spiderhunter?
I think
Oh,
we
I
can.
want to know why Peter Kaestner didn't record it, or maybe he did. We just don't know.
Oh,
I wonder if that's something that changed with him through time, is
Oh,
how he documented birds. Anyways, sorry,
Yeah.
RJ.
yeah. Oh, no, that's all
very
right.
cool.
So this is from Kelsey. Kelsey said, I have a question. What is the difference between a female common grackle and a rusty blackbird? I saw a bird at my feeder today and noticed it looked like a grackle, but slightly smaller and had like no tail feathers compared to a grackle. And this is,
question.
So given what we were just talking about, one of the things I would tell her is when you see something like that, take a picture of it. And then you can ask people, like you can put it up on a lot of local areas have websites where you can put it up. My guess is that it could be a female grackle. And maybe it's missing its tail because female grackles are smaller than the males. And so they could look a little different. Rusty blackbird is quite a bit smaller than common grackle.
Yeah.
But I certainly understand what she's saying. I've always worried about it, and they tend to forage in some of the same areas. So there have been times when I've been out looking for rusty blackbirds. We were talking about this.
yeah,
Right?
we did an episode on rusty blackbirds. Yeah.
And been worried that I was overlooking rusty blackbirds. And then you see one and it's like, oh, yeah, that's a lot smaller than common grackle.
Yeah.
And it's got a smaller bill and stuff. And so some of it's, just field marks and things. And so definitely rusty blackbirds are similar to common grackles, but they have a lot of field marks that make them different. The smaller size and the narrower bill and things.
Now, could it have been a brewer's blackbird?
Well, that crossed my mind too. So the quick answer is sure, which is why she should get a picture of it.
Did she say where she was? Where was she?
I think she was in Michigan, I believe. I
Because
don't remember.
you know-
She didn't specify, but I think she's written to us before, and I believe she's
All
from
of
Michigan.
these are pieces of a puzzle that you put together. And, people who've done this for decades put the puzzle together faster because the puzzle is formed better in their minds. When you first start, the puzzle pieces are like all over the table. And you have to kind of find the corners and start, weaving the puzzle together. And that's what you have to do. So she has some puzzle pieces. She knows where she is. That's another puzzle piece. It's this big, but smaller than that. Those are other puzzle pieces. What color is it? Other puzzle pieces. And this is why when we teach ornithology, I always talk about form and function. So if you see the beak and it's really small, slightly decurved beak, it's probably an insect eater and it's probably a warbler, not a sparrow, for example, even if they're both brown when you see them. So you just have to start putting the puzzle pieces together. And the more practice you get, the faster you put the puzzle pieces together.
And if you're in Mindanao in the Philippines, it could be an orange-tufted spiderhunter.
Yeah, and I hope you have your camera with you.
Yes. Video camera, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Kelsey. I hope that
Yes,
was
thank
helpful.
you.
We have a lot of info on the rusty blackbird, too, in one of our episodes. So feel free to go listen to that as well.
We'll have to do common grackle at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd like to do that.
Yeah. All right. Anybody want to close it out?
Well, we're looking forward to next week and
Yes.
next episode, and we certainly thank everybody for listening to us.
Yes.
Thank you all for listening. Please join us next week when we talk to Peter Kaestner. This is our best interview yet. He has so many amazing stories and was such a great person to spend time with. Spread the word, subscribe, shout it from the rooftops. We've got Peter Kaestner coming on to talk on Birds of a Feather Talk Together. Just a reminder for everyone, if you have a question for us, you can reach us at podcast.birdsofafeather@gmail.com. All right, see you all next week. It's going to be a fun one. Love you all.